All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Did a Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today we are going to be defiling ourselves. And by that, I mean we are going to be talking about the Circle of the Blighted Druid. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this stuff, be sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon, turn notifications on. All those things are really, really important for not only letting me know that you like this stuff, but also for telling YouTube to let other people see this. If you don't do that, nobody else sees it. So, the Druid. Yeah, sorry, my mouse is going real weird for just a second there. The Druid. First things first, this is another of the subclasses from the Tal'Dorei campaign setting Reborn. I have a review for it. If you want to watch that, it is currently my most popular video on this channel, which is super cool. Anyway, this is kind of an interesting one. This is one of the new subclasses introduced into the Tal'Dorei Reborn. There are a few that are just updates of classes that were in the original one, but this one is brand spanking new. And the first thing I thought of when I read this, just the first little thing was, oh, this kind of sounds like something Caduceus would have done really well with. And then I actually, just the idea of, a blighted druid sounds kind of like, he was really into mushrooms and anything like that. If you're unaware of the, if you're unaware about who I'm talking about, that was the second character that Taliesin Jaffe played in Campaign 2 of Critical Role. And he was actually a Grave Domain cleric. He wasn't a druid at all, but this kind of gave me similar vibes until I started actually looking at the class, and this is a really interesting class. Yeah, let's dive into the class itself. Quick reminder about 5th edition class design. In 5th edition, every class is designed to play very, very differently right from the beginning. In order to do that, every class has these things that we call defining features. A defining feature is either something unique to the class, or maybe it's not unique to the class, but they get it earlier than other classes or can use it in a different way. In order for something to be considered a defining feature, it needs to show up in the first 2 levels. So, what are the defining features of a druid? It helps if I actually go to the thing. Come on, this is not that hard. There we go. All right, sorry. So, defining features of the druid. They are full spellcasters, which isn't, I wouldn't really call it a defining feature because it's shared with so many other classes that it doesn't really define the druid. Some of the spells that they get are unique to the druid, but that's true about every class. However, the big defining feature of the druid is called Wild Shape. Wild Shape effectively allows the druid to transform into animals. There are some pretty strict limitations on Wild Shape. And because of that, in general, Wild Shape tends to not be something you can use in combat unless you are a Circle of the Moon druid, where it is built entirely around turning Wild Shape into an offensive ability. In fact, one of the first abilities for the Moon Druid is called Combat Wild Shape. Most other subclasses are going to modify the wild shape in some way, shape, or form because it is the big defining feature of the druid. Yes, spellcasting is a really big part of being a druid, and they do have another unique ability that's never referenced in the rest of the class, and most people don't even realize this is a thing. They actually have a unique language that they learn called Druidic, that they are the only people in the game that can actually speak and understand this language. Druidic is so so specific that the only way to be able to decipher a Druidic message, because you can both speak it and you can use it to leave like hidden messages. The only way to decipher a Druidic message if you don't actually speak it is to actually use magic that allows you to understand all languages or something like that. So it's a really cool feature that druids never use. I don't think I have ever seen a druid ever use druidic in any of the games that I have run. People just kind of forget about it because it's a first level ability that is never referenced in the rest of the game, and it's kind of like the same way I kind of treat Thieves' Cant. They're both super amazing, powerful abilities that nobody thinks about because there is literally no way to use them in combat. It is physically impossible to use those to give yourself some sort of combat advantage unless you happen to be in combat with another druid and you need to talk to them without other people understanding it. So, that being said, as cool as Druidic is, it's not mentioned in this subclass at all, so we can kind of forget it. As most people do. Need my water. So that being said, what exactly does the Blighted Druid deal with? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's dive into the subclass itself. At second level, when you choose this, I guess I should mention, because druids can choose their subclass at second level, a lot of times your subclass, very similar to the cleric, your subclass is going to give you a defining feature. And that, like I said, that's blatantly obvious with the two subclasses in the player's handbook for druids. The Circle of the Moon druid turns their wild shape into a combat form and actually just keeps upgrading their wild shape through the entire thing, and it becomes basically how that druid interacts is using their wild shape. On the other hand, the Circle of the Land druid gives them access to additional spells, and it gives them effectively a version of arcane recovery from the wizard. So it changes their spellcasting to become a defining feature for the class. Despite the fact, again, I wouldn't 100% say spellcasting is defining feature for the druid. When you choose Circle of the Land, it becomes a defining feature because of how heavily it is emphasized. So, that being said, let's dive into this. So, at second level, you get Defile Ground. You can use a bonus action to corrupt a patch of land or an area of water in a 10-foot radius centered on a point within 60 feet of you. This corruption lasts for 1 minute. The corrupted area is difficult terrain for creatures that are hostile to you. Additionally, when a creature in that area takes damage from an attack or spell for the first time on a turn, it takes an extra d4 necrotic damage. You can move this patch of corruption up to 30 feet as a bonus action. Flying creatures are unaffected by the corruption. And then 10th level, the radius increases to 20 feet. The extra damage increases to a d6 at 10, and then a d8 at 14th level. And the final thing, once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So, this is a really interesting ability. I have to talk about the thing that I always tend to talk about, which is one and done abilities. I've talked about the elixir problem or the Elixir Paradox, or a million other things. Basically, one and done abilities don't get used. And it's because people go, well, this is a really, really powerful ability. I can't use it in this fight, or I can't use it now because what if we get into another fight and it's going to be more useful than there? I'm just not going to use it. Simply giving something 2 uses instead of 1 exponentially increases the number of times both uses are used. So I'm not particularly fond of the idea of this being a one and done ability. It's a one and done on a short rest, so it's not quite as bad as it could be, but it's still a one and done. On your character sheet, it's going to say you only have 1 use of this until a short rest. But it's 1, so people aren't going to use it. The other issue I have with this being a one and done is almost everything in the rest of this class modifies Defile Ground. Defile Ground is a defining ability, or a defining feature for the Blighted Druid. And a defining feature that you can only use once is not a great idea. And it also means the rest of this subclass is severely hampered by an inability to be able to use this. And we'll see issues as we go forward with just things that happen in relation to it. So that being said, there's a lot of good things about this. First of all, 10-foot radius means a 20-foot circle, which is a pretty large area. And you can move it up to 30 feet as a bonus action. So you always have a bonus action. And this bonus action is actually remarkably useful because of the additional things that this does. It becomes difficult terrain, which means, and a lot of people don't quite understand how movement works. They go, oh, what just it means you have your speed. No. The way difficult terrain works is to enter an area of difficult terrain, you have to use twice the number of movement to do it. So if you're on a map and each square means equals 5 feet, in order to enter the next square, you have to use 10 feet of movement. Meaning, if you don't have 10 feet of movement left, you only have 5 feet of movement, you can't move into that square. If you are already in a place of difficult terrain, that means moving, and you're surrounded by difficult terrain, it means moving out of your square always costs increments of 10 feet. So, if you knock someone prone when they're in difficult terrain, your normal unit in D&D is going to have 30 feet of movement. So you knock them prone, it takes half their movement speed to stand up. So that means they only have 15 feet of movement. Because it costs 10 feet of movement to move to the next square, they can't actually move more than 1 square. Despite the fact that they have 15 feet of movement, that last 5 feet of movement is unusable to them. And that's the distinction a lot of players don't make. They just think, oh, it halves my movement, so I can move this and then, this. No, you can't actually enter an area of difficult terrain if you don't have enough movement to move into it completely. And that is a huge thing. So yes, the difficult terrain, significantly more useful than a lot of people give it credit for, because that's an action economy kind of control style thing. Another thing that's useful about this is it's only enemies that are hostile to you. I think is the to creatures that are hostile to you. So none of your allies are affected by any of this stuff, which is a really useful thing. And it's something that's becoming significantly more common as more supplements could come out. In like basic D&D 5e, like the stuff that you get in the basic rules or in the player's handbook, being able to not hit your allies with area abilities was something very, very unique. It is actually one of the defining features of the Evocation Wizard, is the idea that they can shape their spells. They can bend spells around their allies so that they don't get hit by them. It's a really, really big deal. And it was almost exclusive to the Evocation Wizard to be able to cast area effects that didn't affect your allies. And it was very limited. It was only on evocation. We'll try that again. Only on evocation spells that they were able to do that. It was only that subclass. As more things, excuse me for a second. I've just got something in the back of my throat, and it's annoying the hell out of me. I hate doing that because it fogs up my glasses as well. Anyway, as more things came out, you started seeing more abilities that this only affects enemies hostile to you, or things around that thing. And I'm not 100% against that. I like having things that only affect enemies. It means you can be a little bit more aggressive in your use of them. You don't have to worry quite as much about you doing as much damage to your allies as the bad guys are doing, which was a problem, especially in earlier editions where none of this stuff existed. And Wizards specifically, because they were so powerful at high levels, could wipe out their own party. Unless they were very, very careful about how they cast their spells. And the most dangerous thing in the world to have to deal with was being in a small, confined area when you were in combat and you had a wizard on your puppet party. Because the more powerful the spells got, the bigger the areas they started dealing with. And yeah. So I'm not against that, and in this particular instance, this is definitely something that you should take advantage. And finally, the wording that they use here takes an when a creature in this in the area takes damage from an attack or spell for the first time on a turn, and this is where you need to understand the difference between a round and a turn. A round is everybody in combat gets a single turn in one complete round. A round starts at the top of initiative and ends at the bottom of initiative, and then goes back to the top, and that is your next round. Turn is a single character's set of actions. So any creature that is inside this area can take that damage once per turn, not per round. So every character that attacks that is going to get this extra bump on their first attack or spell cast that does the damage on their turn. This is a really, really good thing, especially if you could combine it with abilities that or with classes that can crit a little bit more often. I talk about critting a lot because it's a big deal in 5th edition specifically because of how crit mechanics work. Critical hit in 5th edition can be massive. And if you get like a rogue, that a lot of times rogues tend to roll with advantage due to hide mechanics or other things that are built into the class. And when they hit, they do a lot of damage because they're sneak attack and it's all dice. So if they get a crit, they double the number of dice they roll, which would include the Defiled Ground die. Now, that's going from, at base level, it's going from 1d4 to 2d4. That's going from 4 hit points to 8 hit points. At level 1, 8 hit points is actually a decent amount. 4 hit points really isn't. But as you go up at maximum level for this, you're only doing 1d8 or 2d8 on a crit. It is not a massive amount. But when you stack that up over an entire round, if you have a 5-person party, which is a very common party, this bonus action, if every single character hits anybody in this area once in the round, that means, including you hitting them, because this is just a bonus action, you can use your action to actually do damage. That would mean this bonus action ability does 5d8 damage and lasts for 10 rounds. So effectively lasts all of combat. That's a pretty big deal for an ability that doesn't use spell slots or anything like that. So yeah, it's a remarkably useful thing, and it just gets more useful as the class goes on. Like I said, my big issue with it is the fact that it is a one and done. I would much rather see this tied to your proficiency bonus and not 1-to-1. I think this ability should be you can you can use this number of time equal to half your proficiency bonus rounded down. So when you first get it, it still is a one and done ability because at low levels, this actually is a pretty powerful ability. The higher it gets, the less powerful it becomes. It doesn't scale super well at higher levels, especially since it doesn't affect flying creatures and things like that. So there's a lot of limitations that you generally won't deal with at low levels, but at high levels, you will definitely be dealing with them. So yeah, it would limit it to you wouldn't get a second use of it until I think, if I'm remembering correctly, around 7th or 8th level. I have a thing in front of me. I can actually look at it. Tell you exactly when. 9th level is when you get your first second use of it, which makes sense, especially with the fact that most D&D campaigns end anywhere between 8th and 12th level. So when you're getting to kind of the pinnacle of your campaign, you get a second use of this incredibly useful ability, and then you wouldn't get a third use of it until 17th level, which most people won't get to, but at 17th level, you need to be super powerful. So that would be my one change to this is instead of, turning it into twice per long rest or something, tie it to the proficiency bonus, half the proficiency bonus rounded down, and then you don't have to worry about it becoming broken too quickly. Moving on. Also at 2nd level, you get Blighted Shape. You gain proficiency in the Charisma Intimidation skill. And additionally, when you're transformed by your Wild Shape feature, you get a +2 bonus to AC. And your beast form also gains Dark Vision with a radius of 60 feet or an additional 60 feet of Dark Vision if it already has that sense. We talked about Wild Shape before. This does modify your Wild Shape. However, without Combat Wild Shape, which is exclusive to Moon Druids, Wild Shape generally tends to be an exploration and role-playing focused ability only. You really can't use it in combat very well because you are limited to challenge rating, I think, 1/2 when you first get it. And I think the best it ever gets to, I think, is around challenge rating 2. And that's a really high level. Again, I have it right here. I can actually look at it. Your max CR is limited to challenge rating 1. So you don't even get up to challenge rating 2 unless you're a Moon Druid. So those creatures just aren't useful in combat by the time you get access to them. And they're not supposed to be. So the additional bonus to AC doesn't make a ton of sense because 9 times out of 10 you're not going to be getting attacked in these forms, and generally the forms tend to be fragile enough that one hit is going to kill them anyways. So an additional 2 AC doesn't make a ton of sense. The additional Dark Vision is really useful because there's a lot of creatures that have the ability to maybe like spider climb or by 8th level, you can actually get flying creatures. And the ability to give them Dark Vision can be incredibly useful. Because now you no longer have to pick your scout form based on does it have Dark Vision or not. And if it does have Dark Vision, you get even further. 60 feet is not that long a distance when you are scouting ahead. In combat, 60 feet is a large area. But when you're scouting, 120 feet is a lot better. So, yeah, overall, cool thing. The +2 bonus to AC is a little bit weird, but it's not a horrible thing. Yeah. Moving on. At 6th level, you get Call of the Shadowseeds. When a creature that is not undead or a construct takes damage within your area of Defiled Ground feature, you can use your reaction to summon a Blighted Sapling in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the creature. You can direct the sapling to make an attack against any creature within 5 feet of it. As part of this reaction, the sapling then acts on your initiative, obeying your verbal commands. It remains until it's reduced to 0 hit points until the end of your next long rest, or until you summon another sapling, at which point it crumbles into foul-smelling mulch. And you can use this feature number times equal to your proficiency bonus, regaining all expended uses when you finish a long rest. And then it has its own stat block. So the one issue, or I have two issues with this. One, it says obeying your verbal commands, but it doesn't actually define if those verbal commands take some sort of an action or not. If we're looking at post Tasha's summon abilities, most of those require you to use your bonus action to do it. A few of them don't require any action, just basically give you a free pet class, which is kind of what this starts to evolve into with this ability. Now, the issue with it is you can use it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, but it has to happen when your Defile Ground is on, and that is a one and done ability. So you can only use it in one combat, and it basically means you can use it once and then resurrect that creature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. But this is effectively a one and done ability with multiple uses, which seems like a contradiction in terms. Because it's tied to the Defiled Ground, you are extremely limited in your ability to use this, which is one of the reasons why the Blighted Saplings exist after... they exist until the end of your next long rest. So they exist for a pretty long time. Now, the creatures themselves are not powerhouses. They use your spell attack modifier to hit, which means more likely than not, if you're building your Druid correctly, they're going to hit as often as you would hit. Their damage is 2d4 plus your proficiency bonus piercing damage, which isn't a horrible amount of damage. It's not a massive amount, but since it's effectively free damage as far as I can tell from here, it's nice. And at 14th level, they can do that twice. They get multi-attack, which is none of nice. However, their hit points are just twice your Druid level. So at level 20, they have 40 hit points, which could be taken out with a single area as a spell. And that is the maximum they will ever have. So these creatures are not going to be like a ranger's hunting companion or anything like that, where there's something that you... No, this is just a little bit of extra damage until one of the bad guys gets annoyed enough that they attack it. And their armor class is 10 plus your proficiency bonus, so their maximum armor class is going to be a 16. So these are not super powerful summon creatures, but they do start affecting action economy pretty significantly, especially since this does not mention anything about using additional actions, like a bonus action or something, to give them verbal commands. So this is effectively additional actions for your group, which is nice. And it does affect the action economy. So, yeah. Again, not a huge fan that it's tied to a one and done ability, but worse things have happened. Moving forward, at 10th level, you get Fell Conjuration. Any beast, fey, or plant, including your Blighted Sapling, summoned or created by your spells or class features, gain the following traits. Blighted resistance, they have immunity to necrotic and poison damage and to the poison condition, and toxic demise. When the creature is reduced to 0 hit points, it explodes in a burst of toxic mulch or fetid viscera. Each creature within 5 feet of the explosion creature must succeed on a con save against your spell save DC or take necrotic damage based on the creature's challenge rating. There's a table I'll talk about in a second. As an action, you can also cause a summoned creature to explode immediately, killing it. So what does this mean? Well, you now have little walking grenades. The damage itself ranges from challenge rating 1/4 or lower. It just does a d4 of necrotic damage. When you get up to challenge rating 1 or higher, it does a number of d8s of necrotic damage equal to the creature's challenge rating. So like a challenge rating 5 creature would do 5d8 damage. So The limitation on this is it has to be created by your spells or class features to get this. But that is a remarkable number of things. The first thing, the first two things that you get that you can actually use this at, you would have gotten at 5th level anyway, which are Summon Fae and Conjure Animals, I believe is what it's called. No, I'm wrong. Summon Beast is actually the first one you get at 2nd level. So you have Summon Beast. You have Conjure Animals at 3rd level. You have Summon Fae at the 3rd level. And then just going forward, basically, a lot of the Conjuration, like Conjure Woodland Being, are Fae creatures. So those would work. And the Conjure spells are unique, where the Summon spells, you summon one creature, and the challenge rating of the creature is equal to your proficiency bonus. For the Conjure ones, you can do, like for Conjure Woodland Beings, which is a 4th level spell, which you would have access to at 10th level. You can summon one Fey creature of challenge rating 2 or lower, 2 of 1 or lower, 4 of half, 1/2 or lower, or 8 of 1/4 or lower. Because of this foul conjuration, as long as you have, oh, you don't even have to have the Defile Ground for this. This is just anytime you use a summon, which again kind of turns this into a pet class kind of summoner based class. You basically, the Conjure Woodland Beings start becoming exceptionally useful. Because specifically, like for Conjure Woodland Beings, you summon Fey creatures that appear in unoccupied spaces you can see within range. The range is 60 feet, so you can literally place them anywhere you want within 60 feet. And it is an action for them to appear. If you get 8 1/4 or lower creatures, that turns to 8d4 necrotic damage if they all explode. And if you just circle them and basically surround them around a creature, that creature won't be able to move. And using a gridded map, you can get 8 creatures around a single person, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you completely surround a creature with this, a single attack, a lot of times for challenge rating 1/4 or lower, to give you an example, a Blink Dog is a challenge rating 1/4 or lower. It has 22 hit points. That has a lot more hit points than I was expecting it to have. Maybe this won't work. Sprite, little bit better for this particular thing. It's a challenge rating 1/4 creature. It has 2 hit points. So, if you were to use, Conjure Woodland Beings, and they're there, any one of those beings will set off a chain reaction that will explode all of them, forcing the creature in there to take 8 different sources of damage. Now, they can make their saves. It's very, very possible. But as you get higher level, they're going to miss a fair amount of them. And if it is a spellcaster, then every single source of damage they take can become a concentration check on whatever they're concentrating on. Now, I've talked before about the idea of the Minion Mancer, and it's just not a class. It's just not something that tends to be exceptionally useful in 5th edition. It is theory crafted all the time, but in practicality, it's not fun to play. And the benefits of having that many more actions on your side are massively outweighed by the detriments to combat, the difficulty in dealing with that many additional creatures. Like, it's just, they don't do enough. With this, however, in very specific instances, this can be used exceptionally well, especially if you partner with another person. You sit there, you create eight sprites around someone. They now can't move because they can't enter a space that an enemy is occupying. So they are effectively stopped in that place until they try and kill one, which, if they kill any one of them, they will set off a chain reaction that explodes all of them. So they may just sit there and try and make ranged attacks, which if they try to make ranged attacks, they will be made at disadvantage because they have all those things right there. They can't move. And then all one of your friends has to do is fire an area affecting ability that hits just one of them. Because like I said, they all will just explode. So yeah, you'll be able to do damage against the person that is effectively trapped with these the things. And then all the other ones, because again, you can always choose to fail a saving throw. So theoretically, and I don't know how this would go with like conjure woodland beings because they are fey creatures, but they're technically just manifestations. Like they just kind of appear and then they just disappear. So ignoring the ethics of having creatures literally just choose to wow, this gets real dark real quick. Ignoring the ethics of that, this could be a very, very interesting ability to use. Especially once you start doing higher amounts of damage and things like that. Or once you start using things like the new summons spells from Tatasha, where the proficiency bonus actually gets high enough and the creature itself is actually useful in combat because there's only one and it tends to be a uniquely useful creature. So definitely the Blighted Druid, once it gets to level 10, effectively becomes a summoner. And using those summons in the right way is going to do as much as you can. Oh, I just realized, because of ignore what I said, because of Blighted Resilience, you can't get a chain effect because they're immune to necrotic damage, and it only does necrotic damage. Damn! That was my one thing that I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Nope. But even without that, if they, again, the area attack thing, as long as it's not doing necrotic damage, is still very useful. If they cast a fireball when this thing is still around, it still means they're going to get hit by 8 of them. And even if it doesn't create a chain reaction, which I'm kind of upset that it won't, but it won't. Even if they don't create a chain reaction, the target is literally stuck there until they attack one of these creatures and are forced to make a saving throw or to take damage. So, yeah, there are some uses for it, though probably the most useful thing you're going to get out of it, now that I've thought of it, is either teaming up with someone else to detonate them all at once, or just using the summon spells from Tasha's, because they're really, really useful and tend to be remarkably good. So, yeah. That being said, let's move on. Finally, at 14th level, you get Incarnation of Corruption. You basically get some cosmetic effects, things like your skin grows ashen, your eyes darken or turn completely white, and then some spines and stuff start growing out of you. These specific changes, you get a permanent +2 bonus to your AC, which is nice. And then whenever you start your turn within the radius of the corruption created by your Defile Ground feature, you can use a bonus action to gain temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. And for this, I'm slightly less thrilled with it, because +2 bonus to your AC, that's nice. That's nice any time. So yeah, that's cool. Using your bonus action to get temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus isn't. At 14th level, you have a +5 proficiency bonus, so that gives you just 5 temporary hit points, which really isn't that great, and really isn't a great really isn't a great use for your bonus action. When there's a lot of other things you could use your bonus action for, like, I don't know, Healing Word will heal you more than the temporary hit points you will gain from this. Or no, second level Healing Word will generally heal you more than what you're going to get from this. And that's just a second level spell. There are other bonus action spells that druids get. Things like Flame Blade is remarkably useful and thematically is a great great spell for druids, especially since you're going to be having your minions and the things like that doing stuff. So yeah, this just, I don't know, for an ultimate ability for a subclass, this just feels really underpowered. A bonus action to get 5 temporary hit points, it's really not going to do much. There are better ways to use your bonus action, including using an optional rule that's built in here where you can drink a potion as a bonus action. Drinking a potion will give you more hit points than this. The only difference is, technically, as long as your Defile Ground is on, you can technically do this for free, whereas a Potion of Healing requires a Potion of Healing, or casting a spell requires you using a spell slot. But that being said, it's just, I don't see it as being that useful, and I think there are better uses of your bonus action than that. And the +2 bonus to AC is nice, don't get me wrong, but for an ultimate ability, it doesn't improve Defile Ground that much, because it's a really, really weak thing. And it doesn't interact with literally anything else in the subclass at all, other than technically Blighted Shape, because now you have a +2 bonus to AC, and then no, because Blighted Shape wouldn't interact with that, because your AC is different when your AC in your Druid form has no effect on your AC when you are Wild Shape. So yeah, this seems really weird for an ultimate ability where the real benefit is you get a +2 bonus to your AC. I don't really see a way to make this better. I mean, theoretically, changing Defile Ground to be, I don't know, maybe, I was thinking maybe, equal to your Druid level, but that seems a little bit too powerful, because every turn getting 14 points is a lot. 5 points isn't, 14 points is. And then by 20th level, 20 temporary hit points every turn for a bonus action starts getting real broken. Maybe like half your Druid level instead of proficiency bonus, just because then at this point you would get 7, which isn't a ton, but that extra 2 points is going to be better. And then when you get up to 20th level, that's 10 temporary hit points, which is at least enough to cushion a single blow, whereas 5 just isn't. So yeah, I don't really like this ability. I would even like making modifications to it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like it has anything to do with the rest of the, like, I could see this, other than the cosmetic stuff, I could see this ability being put literally on any other subclass for any other class, and it wouldn't feel out of place. Other than its connection to Defile Ground, this would not feel out of place with any other subclass, and that's just not. That's not going to for an ultimate ability, it shouldn't. It should feel unique to this subclass, and this doesn't. So yeah. Anyway, final thoughts. So overall, I like this. I think it's definitely a unique take on the Druid. Druids, like, again, the whole Minion Mancer build, I've talked about it many times. Druids are one of the classes that people have tried to theory craft a Minion Mancer build around, and it's not great, to be honest. Minion Mancer, the reason it's called Minion Mancer is because generally it's done with a necromancy wizard, not any of the druids as subclasses, because they just don't. Again, their defining feature is Wild Shape, and sometimes there's spell casting. It generally just doesn't work very well. This does turn you into kind of a summon based class where you get at 6th level, you get your Blighted Sapling, which acts as a semi-permanent summon for a relatively long time until it dies. And then once you get to the 10th level with Defile Conjuration, you really have a really good benefit to summoning creatures. One of the big downfalls of summoned creatures in general is area attacks decimate them. The Minion Mancer idea is built around the idea of summoning a lot of small creatures because, yes, even though they're small, each individual attack gives you a benefit. So yeah, their damage dice may be small, but when you get 7 or 8 of them all attacking at once, it's a really big thing. And being able to put them in places and control the battlefield like that, that's the positive aspect of the Minion Mancer. But the big downfall is once you get to high enough levels where you can start casting 6 and 8 creatures at a time, they're all gone in a single area spell from an enemy or single area to attack. And so the amount of effort that you have to put in, the amount of resources you have to put into this, and the fact that all these spells are concentrations, you can't use a lot of the other really useful spells because you can only concentrate on one thing, it means that it's not useful because you will generally end up setting up a really cool ability for 90% of a fight, and then one turn you might be able to do something cool if everything works in your favor. With this kind of version of a summoner, there are benefits to having a lot of small creatures, as we talked about, with a kind of like minefield kind of thing. But you can get a significantly better benefit in certain situations from just having one really strong summon as compared to a bunch of really weak summons. And that's one of the things I like about Defile Conjuration is, again, so many in 5th edition, because action economy is so important, so many people look at summoning spells as, okay, how many more creatures can I get? And they focus on that almost exclusively. That's why I like the summon spells from Tasha, because they don't give you the ability to make 7 creatures. You only make 1, but it's one creature that is powerful and feels impactful other than, look at all the things on the ground now. And I think this fits into that idea really, really well. Lore-wise, it's a really, really cool idea of a class. The actual lore of it, I didn't get into it because buy the book, guys. But you really need to read the lore of this class because it is hauntingly beautiful. And goes into the idea of druids being bound to certain parts of land and things like that. Very similar to like land druid, Circle of the Land Druids, or actually they have a specific type of land that they draw their power from. Like the lore behind it is absolutely gorgeous, and I really like everything about it. Like I said, my big issue is Defile Ground is just too limited, and I understand by tying it to half the proficiency bonus rounded down, it means at lower levels you actually get less uses of it. Because theoretically you could get a short rest and use it twice or 3 times per day as it's written, but when you limit it to just that many per day, it means you're only ever going to be able to use it once until you get to 9th level. And to be perfectly honest, yes, that argument is valid, but you don't get that many short rests. As much as technically, yes, I think the game is balanced for like 2 or 3 short rests a day. It's also balanced for 6 to 8 combats per adventuring day, and nobody does that. In the games that I have played, the only reason we ever took short rests was when my monk was almost out of key points. And it was tough to do because you have to find a place where you can sit there and do nothing for an hour. If you're in the middle of a dungeon dive versus something like that, you're not going to get that many short rests. And again, at lower levels, it's the reason I didn't say round it up, though that would be a very, very easy kind of switch to where if it changes from rounded down to rounded up, that means you get a second use as early as Druid Glass. you get a you get a second use as early as 5th level if you round it up, and that would mean very, very little to change. So I guess I'd want to see it play tested to choose whether it's rounded up or rounded down, because getting that second use at 5th level really doesn't change much. At low levels, you don't need to use it more than once. It's a powerful enough ability. I'm fine with it being one and done then. At 5th level, when power levels change, maybe turning it into a 2 and done makes sense. And then at 13th levels, when you get your 3rd, yeah, I think that makes more sense. So round it up instead of down. You all have convinced me, despite the fact that I'm arguing with my self here, but I'm arguing with the people in my mind. So anyway, yeah, overall, I like it. I just think tied to the proficiency bonus, rounded up, half the proficiency bonus rounded up, and then it turns into a really cool thing. Otherwise, since so many things are tied to Defile Ground, it becomes a little bit too limited to be fun. Otherwise, that is going to be all for me today. As always, remember, like, subscribe, turn on notifications in the comments down below. What do you think would be your favorite thing to summon with? There's cosmetic things that happen with a Foul Conjuration. They get like little dire wolf kind of spikes and stuff growing out of them. So in the comments down below, what would be the coolest thing that you would summon with this? It has to be beast, fey, or plant. But the coolest thing that you would summon with Foul Conjuration, what would it look like? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, it's all for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.